The police decide to, well, brutalize a man. Cops beat and arrest a man for doing the high crime of recording in public, which is not a crime at all. Put it up for a mass. Unfortunately, we do not have the video footage as of yet. We are working on that and we'll bring you the video as soon as we can. Cops brutally beat and arrest a black male for recording them. And the jury let them off the hook. I'm going to give you the background. Buffalo PD did not want Mr. Dean Taylor, 65 years of age, recording them from across the street as they were investigating a drive-by shooting of a house in 2019. Taylor not only had the First Amendment right to record, he told the officers he was mainly recording them, which is also his legal right. Officers responded to that legal right by punching him in the face multiple times before shoving him to the ground, piling on top of him, with one officer pressing his knee into Dean's neck. 65 years of age, recording from across the street. There is no prohibition statutorily to the recording. Ironically, they are investigating a drive-by shooting, typically affiliated or associated with gang violence. But the only gang violence that we are quite aware of is the gang violence that happened against the 65-year-old male by those who decided to wear badges for a profession. 65 years of age, well within his constitutional rights, across the street. Everybody who responded to this, they were all on the same page, it seems, based on the testimony and the evidence. Nobody said, whoa, what are you doing? This is a 65-year-old man. Why are we upset at this? Why are we going to beat him for doing what is legal to do? We are law enforcement for those who break laws. So they decided to be the violator of law, in my opinion. But something ironic happened. The incident took place on September 1st. The year was 2019. Mr. Taylor was riding his bicycle from the store to his home when he came across multiple police officers and cars, with cars in front of a home, and decided to lay down his bicycle, take out his phone, and begin recording from across the street. Nothing illegal about that. Which numerous court decisions have determined that is a constitutionally protected activity. And I want to emphasize constitutionally protected. My constitutional law professor would have said, if it is protected for you to do in the Constitution, it is extra legal. Look at it as extra legal. If it is prohibited in the Constitution, it is extra illegal, because it doesn't require prerequisite statutory framework to define either, meaning they're absolute, they're sovereign. He was transported to jail on charges of harassment, obstructing governmental administration, disorderly conduct, but of course, resisting arrest, which were all dismissed following a month. However, when Taylor filed a lawsuit against the Buffalo cops who arrested him, the jury earlier this year decided to side with the officers. Now, why is that? But in a rarely legal move, the judge overseeing the civil trial did what? Overturned the jury's verdict. Overturned the jury's verdict. Let me just pause on that for a moment. We've talked about this on Indisputable before, and we haven't seen a judge do it. And here I have an actual real life case study, an example that we can examine. Judges have this power in many jurisdictions, rarely ever use it. And typically a judge would say something like, I set aside the verdict in the interest of justice. Or they will say, sentence suspended after the decision. Many people aren't aware of what these things mean. But in this rare move, the judge overseeing the civil trial overturned the jury's verdict after one of Taylor's attorneys, after one of them, Blake Zaccagnino from the Shaw and Shaw law firm, filed a post-trial motion asking the judge to set aside the jury's decision for a new verdict or trial under the civil practice law rules, Rule 4404A. You're required to cite the statutory reason. The plaintiff's physical position and presence at the incident was a public space that he was constitutionally entitled to traverse and occupy, which the officer defendants were trained to respect as part of their public duty. New York Supreme Court Judge John Del Monte wrote this in his opinion, which was published on September 19th, 2025. Judge Del Monte ordered a new trial to determine the amount of monetary damages Dean would receive for having his First Amendment right to record the police being violated. Quote, the factual record, that is an important determination. The factual record in this case is clear on this issue. The officer defendants admitted that they knew the plaintiff was entirely within his constitutional right to videotape the public presence and performance of duties of the BPD. So what's all this legal back and forth? Basically, the judges are saying you have the trier of facts. The trier of facts is your jury. They are the ones who weigh the evidence and they become the determinant for what is a fact and what is not. However, there's some things that are already as a matter of fact that the jury does not decide, or it would be inappropriate for a jury to decide a matter that is already a matter of fact, especially when the conclusion of that group called the jury has decided in a way that's contrary to a factual dynamic that is obvious, known, it should not be debated, even admitted to by the cops. Listed as defendants in the lawsuit are Buffalo police officers, Mr. Kyle T. Moriti and Christopher Bridget, as well as the city of Buffalo, the Buffalo Police Department, Buffalo Police Commissioner Byron G. Lockwood, and multiple John Doe cops whose real names have not been determined. The complaint accuses the defendants of excessive force, battery, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent hiring, negligent retention, negligent training, and supervision and failure to intervene. One of the cops who pounded Mr. Taylor had a previous accusation of abuse. During the trial, that cop, one of the cops who arrested him, testified that Taylor's act of recording was, quote, he said this while testifying, annoying and alarming behavior. Annoying and alarming behavior. And served, quote, no legitimate purpose, end quote, which he claimed made it an, quote, arrestable offense, end quote. Taylor's arrest was captured on his own video as well as body camera video, but none of the videos have been released to the public. Atlanta Black Star reached out to his attorneys for the footage, but they have not responded. They may be utilizing that as an opportunity for leverage for their client, which a good lawyer would do if that's part of the current negotiation. I do encourage transparency to always be at the forefront of our representation. Now, it's interesting that negligent hire and negligent retention is part of this suit. An attorney knows you can't sue for that unless you can prove that they did two things. Number one, they hired individuals that they knew they should not have hired based on their background. So you have a negligent hire. Two, you decided to retain individuals that should have been fired based on previous conduct. All right, that makes the agency liable as a company or a governmental entity. All right, dear brothers, a lot here. Very sad, very unfortunate. And the fact that a jury let them off for admitting to the crimes, and then a judge or judges had to intervene based on a motion. The judge didn't have to get that motion, but it gives the judge a little bit of protection politically. That motion is filed, judge grants it, all of a sudden you have justice.
Well, that's the thing, Dr. Richey. Justice is not easy. Democracy is not fun. The Constitution is inconvenient and uncomfortable until it's time for your turn for its convenience and comfort.
Yeah, that's right.
That is how that works. So to Officer Moriarty, who said it's annoying and alarming, what's annoying and alarming is that police constantly break the Constitution, the very laws that they are supposed to uphold, and the very communities, they hurt the very communities that they're supposed to serve. This was a man, Mr. Taylor, who was a 65-year-old who may or may not have been an auditor, but auditors are a front line in our defense for this very democracy. So yes, it's annoying and it's inconvenient and it's all those things. And so what? So is justice. That is how that works. Please, let's all respect Judge Delamonte, who went above and beyond his duty as a judge and actually did his job, which is very rare nowadays, who set aside the jury's verdict, which is a rare thing to do. You know how much you have to be wrong for a judge to go on the limb and set aside a jury's decision? That means that the concepts of harassment, obstruction, and disorderly conduct, which they love to throw upon the people that they know they have done wrong to, were so wrong that the judge was like, sorry, jury, I got this one. In the interest of justice, I got this one. There's also a time where the jury can do that, which is called jury nullification, where the jury says, hey, this law in this situation is unjust. So remember, you don't have to go the way you think you have to go. You can be the man in the movie that fights the rest of the jury, just for those at home. But remember that this country was based on a principle. It's not just laws, not just regulations, but a principle. And that principle is liberty and justice for all. So thank you to Judge Delamonte. And I hope that the officers, Moriarty, who's Sherlock Holmes's biggest enemy, I hope you're put on that Brady list, and so are the rest of your officers that do not know the law, because you should not have your job.
You made a great point in using the word audit as an auditor. And I would say that is actually the fitting term, that we are auditors. Every person here in this country, based on the Constitution, is an empowered auditor. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, seek, the first thing it says is justice. All right, justice, to establish justice. So we the people, well, we the auditor, me, the person that can audit, that can provide this level of transparency to, what does an audit do? Where's transparency? It gives an illumination to what's actually happening. So I'm thankful you said that word. It sparked an entire line of thinking from me that I haven't considered before. So we are encouraged by the attorney, we're encouraged by the judge, we're encouraged by our dear brother for standing up for justice, and we are discouraged by the police officers who are antithetical to the very notion of their job. We'll bring you updates as they come.